with the most important characteristics of the Oval Office meeting between Trump and Zelensky, where Trump went crazy, the whole thing, we've focused on those, right? The important stuff. There was a moment we haven't yet talked about, or maybe I mentioned it, but that now we're seeing Ukrainians respond to. And I want to show you the response in a second. But it was the criticism from Brian Glynn, the boyfriend of Marjorie Taylor Greene and a right-wing commentator, of Zelensky, that he's not wearing a nice enough outfit. Okay? And I'll show you this exchange again, and then I'll show you it being parroted on Fox News, and then we'll look at the reaction that is very to the point from soldiers fighting for Ukraine. If you appreciate the show, please do click the subscribe button, and we have lots of fun on the bonus show, which you can get by clicking the join button below.
Second question.
My second question for President Zelensky. Why don't you wear a suit? Why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest level in this country's office, and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if do you own a suit?
Yeah, problems.
Do you own dignity? Do you own a conscience?
A lot of Americans have problems with you not respecting.
Brian.
I don't have such. I will wear a costume after this war will finish.
Okay.
Yes, maybe one.
Maybe something like
yours.
Yes.
Maybe something better. I don't know. We will see. Maybe something cheaper than. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for.
Yeah, so there was some confusion. People thought he said costume, but he used the Ukrainian word that sounds like costume, Kostium, that means suit. So this is a weird obsession from some of these MAGAs. Laura Ingraham was all over this.
Zelensky was like an annoying gnat. He never shut up in camouflage. But
can you imagine? I don't even want to, I just can't even get into it again. But can you imagine saying that? Apparently Laura Ingraham can. So I don't know why. He's not concerned with such things during wartime. He's going out in the field to interact with soldiers quite frequently. So he's made it his norm to dress in a way that isn't overly embodying the trappings of fanciness, as his soldiers very much are not concerned with that. Or it could be a different reason. I don't know. I don't care. Not a concern. And you know what they aren't concerned with either? Elon Musk wearing t-shirts into the Oval Office. Didn't hear a peep, Brian. No, instead, during those meetings, you were asking questions like, how are you so perfect? Practically. Ugh. Anyways, here's a little response from Ukrainians. This is our suits, you dumbasses. And then tagging Brian Glynn and JD Vance. And for our podcast listeners, I'll describe. It's a Ukrainian soldier in a soldier's outfit. Gosh, that's not the right term. In a uniform. That's the word I should have used. And giving the naughty finger, we'll say. And then you have here someone saying, here's my suit, JD Vance. And JD Vance, the reason why this is being directed at JD is because he seemed very amused in that clip. And another person in a uniform. And her story is actually really interesting. She's an American who went to fight for Ukraine voluntarily. But that seems like a pretty fair response. You're caught up. You don't care about Elon, but people who are actively defending the very survival of the country, fancy suits, not really a concern. That's a problem with you, Brian? Really, Brian? Wow. The UK Prime Minister made this announcement.
The UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air. Together with others, Europe must do the heavy lifting. But to support peace in our continent and to succeed, this effort must have strong US backing.
Yeah, listen, I more than anyone am backing and hoping for and rooting for the ability of Ukrainians to rally, I should say Europeans to rally around Ukraine and make up for the United States backing away. But it's also, so it's significant that he would say boots on the ground, planes in the air. That's significant. And he's saying, though, just let's be clear, we still need the United States' backing. We need their support. Of course, the world's still superpower that used to back things like democracy. Again, I emphasize not through our military going and taking over countries or anything, but instead through giving support in the form of aid and giving negotiating strength to our ally that does stand more for freedom than does the Putin regime. Laura Ingraham, going back to her, she said, ignore all the blue and gold virtue signaling. The most telling question is, how many of them are willing to send their own sons and daughters to fight? And it's video of Ukrainian sympathizers, as they're described, or pro-Ukrainian folks in Times Square, and some right-wing account is saying, this is an insurrection. January 6th wasn't, by this person's definition, but peacefully waving flags in New York City in Times Square, that's an insurrection to them. Oh, goodness. But back to Laura Ingraham, she says, how many of them are willing to send their sons and daughters to fight? I've learned, growing up, you look at people in positions of power or influence, people on the television, right? And they have multi-million-dollar studios, and they have a whole makeup team, and they have script writers, and you think, surely they know better. They know more. Surely, as a kid, you think, surely there's some switch eventually that will get flipped, and that's what they've already experienced, and they know things, and they research things, and they get things. And then you come across Laura Ingraham, and you think, wait, no, she's a multimillionaire who gets paid the big bucks to, make her mouth move on the television screen. And she is more clueless than someone I talked to at a Trump rally. What do you mean, would the folks supporting Ukraine want to send their sons and daughters to die? That's why we support Ukraine. Because right now, they're the prevention of further Russian aggression, potentially with NATO member countries that would necessitate American lives. So they're the ones, Laura, they are, that are sacrificing their lives. They're the ones who are actually doing the fighting. We just have sent some aid with no obligation of our citizens. So it's the reason we want lasting peace is so we prevent further destabilization through further aggression that would make us more directly involved. It's crazy. It's crazy. Turning it upside down. But saying it so proudly, and we have so much more to go through in this segment, please do stick around for it. We get now to Alex Jones posting this. Elon Musk agrees, responding to Elon Musk posting that the U.S. should get out of NATO and the UN. It's time to leave NATO and the UN. America is declaring independence from the globalist death cult system. Which, by the way, I always think this with these folks. Look at me. Look me in the eyes for a second. Really look at me. Think for a second, because when I describe your intentions, I think they could genuinely be your intentions. I think some of you genuinely think democracy has failed such that you should go to authoritarianism. I'm not saying that to be provocative. Do you really think that myself, my mommy, my Jaden, no, etc., that we genuinely are a death cult, that we are a part of a globalist death cult? Jaden?
Yes.
Jaden's in, but I'm out, okay? I'm not in a death cult. I'm not in a globalist death cult. Unless you describe eating cheeseburgers as a death cult, because that I'll keep doing. But otherwise, and how do you think we're going to have a productive discussion if you're acting like any of the people you disagree with are in a globalist death cult? My goodness. But anyway, here he is. And here's what he has to say about Elon Musk rooting on the greatest collapse of American power, strength, and authority on the world stage in the history of this country, which would be us withdrawing from these organizations.
Elon Musk just joined Senator.
It's always such a jump scare. Elon Musk.
Elon Musk just joined Senator Mike Lee in calling for the United States to leave NATO. NATO is left over from the Cold War. NATO is how the EU and the globalists hold America hostage by starting these wars with Russia. NATO continues to expand right to the borders of Russia.
I wonder why. It's almost like Russia keeps trying to invade their neighbors.
NATO and the unelected EU that it represents literally is pushing global government and eating bugs and carbon taxes and the transgenderism and pedophilia. If Russia was doing any of that, I'd be totally against Russia. Communist China is still allied with the left to a great extent, and they're pushing it all too.
So apparently, a defensive alliance and its related organizations is, I mean, ultimately, what's the end game of NATO? To prevent authoritarian regimes from taking over sovereign countries and forcing them to live under less rights and less freedom? No. That's not what NATO's for, okay? NATO's for the pedos.
Too. And now Putin's come out and said, rare earth minerals, U.S., come in, we'll work with you. Just like Nixon split Russia off from China. That's the thing to do. And so Elon Musk coming out and doing this and saying, yeah, it's time to leave. NATO is a joke, ladies and gentlemen. This is a real revolution that we're witnessing right now. And as
Did I hear a cat? Meow. So NATO is a joke, is his argument. Very thoughtful. In reality, NATO is the most powerful military alliance in the history of human existence. But okay, I guess it's a joke, and has allowed for more global stability than any other time, and has prevented military expansion like no other time, and has protected smaller, weaker nations like they've never been protected before, and has brought more democratic existence and principles of freedom to countries across the Western world like never before. More people now are living under more rights than any time before. But sure, I guess it's just a big silly joke, and instead we should be besties with Russia, where you don't have free speech rights, where you don't have really a right to your life. You don't have a say in your democratic institutions. I guess if that's what MAGA's arguing for, I don't know. But if you're thinking, I don't know, Luke, Alex Jones sounded pretty convincing, then let me show you an example of his dishonesty. Alex Jones said, Zelensky makes his most insane, I think he's trying to say insane demand ever. The U.S. will have to send their sons and daughters to fight, and they will be dying. Wow. As now, if Zelensky came out and said, America, you have to send your sons and daughters and die, I would say bad. But that's not what was actually being articulated. So watch the clip. It'll seem to align with Alex Jones's statement. And let me tell you how he misleads his audience.
The U.S. will have to send their sons and daughters exactly the same way as we are sending their sons and daughters to war. And they will have to fight because it's nature that we're talking about, and they will be dying.
So it sounds pretty compelling. You're just some right-wing viewer. You scroll across and you go, oh my gosh, Volodymyr, why are you saying that? But in reality, the part that was cut off was the crucial premise to his argument, which is that if Ukraine falls and Russia continues their expansion into NATO countries, definitionally, an attack against a NATO country would mean an attack against the United States, the very purpose of this treaty, the purpose of this organization, and then we would be obligated to fighting. We would have to lose lives. But he's saying, I don't want it to get to that. So let us be the ones defending. Let us be the ones pushing back Russia's invasion. If you'll just send us support, then he'll never get past. And it's our citizens who are dying. It's our soldiers who are dying. Isn't that crazy? That's why you have to be careful. He cuts off the if. If Russia gets in it, that's why you heard him say, because of NATO members. If he goes to NATO members, that would then mean American lives on the line. And so by supporting us, you're preventing that prospect altogether. And we are the ones suffering. A pretty sick. Sometimes people overuse this was taken out of context, right? And it's like, it wasn't really, okay? This was a depraved usage of the mechanism of taking someone out of context. But Alex Jones is going Craytown, responding to some report that Mike Lee is also saying the U.S. should get out of NATO. And he said, it's about to happen. Now, it's, when parents have to sit kids down and say, listen, you've lived in a bubble and you have always been safe and cared for. And so as you go out into the world, it's not all like that. And you have to check yourself on your own spoiledness, right? Some spoiled kids may have to be told that. Alex Jones is like a spoiled kid. JD Vance, Donald Trump, etc., they all, not in growing up with privilege, as was the analogy, but instead in growing up in a world that was fundamentally defined by the international organizations that now they want to tear down. The world's sole superpower equals US. The strength, stability, and environment that fostered for people. They've known it all their lives now. They're so used to having this world order. And so now because I don't even know, because they don't get the conflict, because they really are thinking it's sexy, it's hot to have authoritarianism, so let's support Putin in that, because then maybe it makes a better justification for us to do it here. Whatever the reason is, they don't seem to understand how this could impact them. It's always, no, it's going to be good for us. It's always eventually going to get to you when you start stripping rights away. And that is what they don't understand. And they're spoiled because in their whole life, they've just lived in an environment where the US had the power that it does. But that power is bolstered by and necessitates the international relationships and organizations that we've helped to create. One other little bonus thing. Why can't Trump go anywhere without Elon Musk? It's so weird. He came out on stage and now he's back at Mar-a-Lago and you're thinking, all right, cool. He's waving. He's having a good time. I was thinking, look, it's just him, Laura Trump. There's a crowd. They're having a good time. Whoa! And then Elon's there. What? He's always there. I wake up in the morning, I open my blinds, Elon is there. I go to the coffee shop. The barista turns around, it's Elon. I can't get Elon out of my freaking face. Share your thoughts in the comments.